Yet, so many people say that their prayers have gone unanswered. No prayer, and a prayer is nothing more than a fervent statement of what is so goes unanswered. Every prayer, every thought, every statement, every feeling is creative, to the degree that it is fervently held as truth. To that degree will it be made manifest in your experience. When it is said that a prayer has not been answered, what has in actuality happened is that the most fervently held thought, word, or feeling has become operative. Yet what you must know, and here is the secret, is that always it is the thought behind the thought, what might be called the sponsoring thought, that is the controlling thought. If, therefore, you beg and supplicate, there seems a much smaller chance that you will experience that you think you are choosing, because the sponsoring thought behind every supplication is that you do not have now that you wish. That sponsoring thought becomes your reality. The only sponsoring thought which could override this thought is the thought held in faith that God will grant whatever is asked without fail. Some people have such faith, but very few. The process of prayer becomes much easier when, rather than having to believe that God will always say yes to every request, one understands intuitively that the request itself is not necessary. Then the prayer is a prayer of thanksgiving. It is not a request at all, but a statement of gratitude for what is so. When you say that a prayer is a statement of what is so, are you saying that God does nothing, that everything which happens after a prayer is a result of the prayer's action? If you believe that God is some omnipotent being who He is on prayer, say yes to some, no to others, and maybe, but not now, to the rest, you are mistaken. By what rule of thumb would God decide? If you believe that God is the creator and decider of all things in life, you are mistaken. God is the observer, not the creator, and God stands ready to assist you in living your life, but not in the way you might expect. It is not God's function to create or uncreate the circumstances or conditions of your life. God created you in the image and likeness of God. You have created the rest through the power God has given you. God created the process of life and life itself as you know it. Yet God gave you free choice to do with life as you will. In this sense, your will for you is God's will for you. You are living your life the way you are living your life, and I have no preferences in the matter. This is the grand illusion in which you have engaged, that God cares one way or the other what you do. You do not care what you do, and that is hard for you to hear. Yet do you care what your children do when you send them out to play? Is it a matter of consequence to you whether they play tag or hide and seek or pretend? No, it is not, because you know they are perfectly safe. You have placed them in an environment which you consider friendly and very okay. Of course, you always hope that they do not hurt themselves, and if they do, you will be right there to have them, heal them, allow them to feel safe again, to be happy again, to go and play again another day. But whether they choose hide and seek or pretend will not matter to you the next day either. You will tell them, of course, which games are dangerous to play. But you cannot stop your children from doing dangerous things. Not always, not forever, not in every moment, from now until death. It is the wise parent who knows it. Yet the parent never stops caring about the outcome. It is this dysautonomy, not caring deeply about the process, but caring deeply about the result, that comes close to describing the dysautonomy of God. Yet God, in a sense, does not even care about the outcome, not the ultimate outcome. This is because ultimate outcome is assured. And this is the second great illusion of man, that the outcome of life is in doubt. It is this doubt about ultimate outcome that has created your greatest enemy, which is fear. For you, if doubt outcome, then you must doubt Creator, you must doubt God. And if you doubt God, you must live in fear and guilt all your life. If you doubt God's intention and God's ability to produce this ultimate result, then how can you ever relax? How can you ever truly find peace? Yet God has full power to match intention with results. You cannot and will not believe in this, even though you claim that God is all-powerful. And so you have to create in your imagination a power equal to God, in order that you may find a way for God's will to be thwarted. And you have created in your methodology the being you call devil. You have even imagined a God at war with this being, thinking that God solves problems the way you do. Finally, you have actually imagined that God could lose this war. All of this violates things, everything you said you know about God, but this doesn't matter. You live your illusion and thus feel your fear. All of your decision to doubt God. But what if you made a new decision? What then would be the result? I tell you this. You would live as the Buddha did, as Jesus did, as did every saint you have ever idealized. Yet, as with most of these saints, people would not understand you. And when you try to explain your sense of peace, your joy in life, your inner ecstasy, they would listen to your words, but not hearing them. They would try to repeat your words, but would add to them. They would wonder how you could have what they cannot find, and then they would grow jealous. Soon jealousy would turn to rage, and in their anger they would try to convince you that it is you who do not understand God. And if they were unsuccessful at tearing you from your joy, they would seek to harm you. So enormous would be their rage. And when you told them it does not matter, that even death cannot interrupt your joy, nor change your truth, they would surely kill you. Then when they saw the peace with which you accepted death, they would call you saint and love you again. For it is the nature of people to love, then destroy, then love again, that which they value most. But why? Why do we do that? All human actions are motivated at their deepest level by one of two emotions, fear or love. In truth, there are only two emotions, only two words in the language of the soul. These are the opposite end of the great polarity, which I created when I produced the universe and your world, as you know it today. These are the 2 points, the alpha and the omega, which allow the system you call relativity to be. Without these 2 points, without these 2 ideas about things, no other idea could exist. Every human thought and every human action is based in either love or fear. There is no other human. motivations, and all other ideas are but derivatives of these two. They are simply different versions, different twists on the same theme. Think on this deeply, and you will see that it is true. This is what I have called the sponsoring thought. It is either a thought of love or fear. This is the thought behind the thought behind the thought. It is the first thought. It is the prime force. It is the raw energy that drives the engine of human experience. And here is how human behavior produces repeat experience after repeat experience. This is why human love, then destroy, then love again. Always there is the swing from one emotion to the others. Love sponsors, fear sponsors, love sponsors fear. And the reason is found in this first lie, the lie which you hold as the truth about God, that God cannot be trusted, that God's love cannot be depended upon, that God's acceptance of you is conditional, that the ultimate outcome is thus in doubt. For if you cannot depend on God's love to always be there, on whose love can you depend? If God retreats and withdraws when you do not perform properly, will not mere mortals also? And so it is that in the moment you pledge your highest love, you create your greatest fear. For the first thing you worry about after saying, I love you, is whether you hear it back. And if you hear it back, then you begin immediately to worry that the love you have just found, you will lose. And so on action becomes reaction, defense against loss. Even as you seek to defend yourself against the loss of God. Yet, if you knew who you are, that you are the most magnificent, the most remarkable, the most splendid being God has ever created, you would never fear. For who could reject such wondrous magnificence? Not even God could find fault in such being. But you do not know who you are, and you think you are a great deal less. And where did you get the idea of how much less than magnificent you are? From the only people whose word you would take on everything. From your mother and your father. These are the people who love you the most. Why would they lie to you? Yet have they not told you that you are too much of this and not enough of that? Have they not reminded you that you are to be seen and not heard? Have they not scolded you in some of moments of your greatest exuberance? And did they not encourage you to set aside some of your wildest imagining? These are the messages you have received, and though they do not meet the criteria, and are thus not messages from God, they might as well have been, for they have come from the gods of your universe surely enough. It was your parents who taught you that love is conditional. You have felt their conditions many times, and that is the experience you take into your own love relationships. It is also the experience you bring to me. From this experience, you draw your conclusion about me. Within this framework, you speak as your truth. God is a loving God, you say, but if you break His commandments, He will punish you with eternal banishment and everlasting damnation. For have you not experienced the banishment of your own parents? Do you not know the pain of their damnation? How, then, could you imagine to be any different with me? You have forgotten that it was like to be loved without condition. You do not remember the experience of the love of God. And so you try to imagine that God's love must be like based on what you see of love in the world. You have projected the role of parent onto God and have thus come up with a God who judges and rewards and punishes based on how good He feels about what you've been up to. But this is a simplistic view of God based on your methodology. It has nothing to do with who I am. having thus created an entire thought system about God based on human experience rather than spiritual truths. You then create an entire reality around love. It is fear-based reality, rooted in the idea of fearful, vengeful God. Its sponsoring thought is wrong, but to deny that thought would be to disrupt your whole theology. And though the new theology which would replace it would truly be salvation, you cannot accept it because the idea of God, who is not to be feared, who will not judge, and who has no cause to punish, is simply too magnificent to be embraced within even your grandest notion of who and what God is. This fear-based love reality dominates your experience of love. Indeed, actually creates. For not only do you see yourself receiving love, which is conditional, you also watch yourself giving it in the same way. And even when you withhold and retreat and set your conditions, a part of you knows that this is not what love really is. Still, you seem powerless to change the way you dispense it. You've learned the hard way. You tell yourself, you be damned if you're going to leave yourself vulnerable again. Yet the truth is, you be damned if you don't. By your own thoughts about love, do you damn yourself never to experience it purely? So, to do you damn self never to know me as I really am, until you do. For you shall not be able to deny me forever, and the moment will come for our reconciliation. Every action taken by human being is based in love or fear, not simply those dealing with relationship. Decisions affecting business, industry, politics, religion, the education of your young, the social agenda of your nation, the economic goals of your society. Choices involving war, peace, attack, defense, aggression, submission, determinations to covet or give away, to save or to share, to unite or to divide. Every single free choice you ever undertake arises out of one of the only two possible thoughts there are, a thought of love or a thought of fear. Fear is the energy which contracts, closes down, draws in, runs, hides, hoards, harms. Love is the energy which expands, opens up, sends out, stays, reveals, shares, heals. Fear wraps our bodies in clothing. Love allows us to stand naked. Fear clings to and clutches all that we have. Love gives all that we have away. Fear holds close, love holds dear. Fear grabs, love lets go. Fear rankles, love soothes. Fear attacks, love amends. Every human thought, word, or deed is based in one emotion or the other. You have no choice about this, but because there is nothing else from which to choose, but you have free choice about which of these to select. You make it sound so easy, and yet in the moments of decision, fear wins more often than not. Why is that? You have been taught to live in fear. You have been told about the survival of the fittest, and the victory of the strongest, and the success of the cleverest. Precious little is said about the glory of the most loving, and so you strive to be the fittest, the strongest, the cleverest, in one way or another. And if you see yourself as something less than this in any situation, you feel lost, for you have been told that to be less is to lose. And so of course you choose the action fear sponsors, for that is what you have been taught. Yes, I teach you this. When you choose the action love sponsors, then will you do more than survive? Then will you do more than win? Then will you do more than succeed? Then will you experience the full glory of who you really are and who you can be? To do this, you must turn aside the teaching of your well-meaning, but misinformed, worldly tutors, and hear the teachings of those whose wisdom comes from another source. There are many such teachers among you, as always there have been, for I will not leave you without those who show you, teach you, guide you, and remind you of this truth. Yet the greatest reminder is not anyone outside you, but the voice within you. This is not the first tune that I use because it is the most accessible. The voice within, the loudest voice with which I speak, because it is the closest to you. It is the voice which tells you whether everything else is true or false, right or wrong, good or bad, as you have defined it. It is the radar that sets the course, steers the ship, guides the journey, if you but let it. It is the voice which tells you right now whether the very words of you are reading are words of love or words of fear. By this measure, you can determine whether they are words to heed or words to ignore. You say that when I always choose the action that love sponsors, then I will experience the full glory of who I am and who I can be. We expand on this, please. There is only one purpose for all of life, and that is for you and all that lives to experience fullest glory. Everything else you say, think, or do is attendant to that function. There is nothing else for your soul to do, and nothing else your soul wants to do. The wonder of this purpose is that it is never ending. An ending is a limitation, and God's purpose is without such a boundary. Should there come a moment in which you experience yourself in your fullest glory, you will in that instant imagine an ever greater glory to fulfill. The more you are, the more you can become, and the more you can become, the more you can yet be. The deepest secret is that life is not a process of discovery, but a process of creation. You are not discovering yourself, but creating yourself anew. Seek, therefore, not to find out who you are. Seek to determine who you want to be. There are those who say that life is a school, that we are here to learn specific lessons, that once we graduate, we can go on to our larger pursuits, no longer shackled by the body. Is this correct? It is another part of your mythology, based on human experience. Life is not a school? No. We are not here to learn lessons? No. Then why are we here? To remember, to recreate who you are. I have told you over and over again, you do not believe me, yet that is well as it should be. For truly, if you do not create yourself as who you are, that you cannot be, okay, you've lost me. Let's go back to this school bit. I've heard teacher after teacher tell us that life is a school. I'm frankly shocked to hear you deny that. School is a place you go if there is something you do not know that you want to know. It is not a place you go if you already know a thing and simply want to experience your knowingness. Life, as you call it, is an opportunity for you to know experientially what you already know conceptually. You need learn nothing to do this. You need merely remember what you already know and act on it. I'm not sure I understand. Let's start here. The soul, your soul, knows all there is to know all the time. There's nothing hidden to it, nothing unknown. Yet knowing is not enough. The soul seeks to experience. You can know yourself to be generous, but unless you do something which displays generosity, you have nothing but a concept. You can know yourself to be kind, but unless you do someone a kindness, you have nothing but an idea about yourself. It is your soul's only desire to turn its grounded concept about itself into its greatest experience. Until concept becomes experience, on there is speculation. I have been speculating about myself for a long time, longer than you and I could collectively remember, longer than the age of this universe times the age of the universe. You see? Then, how young is, how new is my experience of myself? You've lost me again, your experience of yourself. Yes, let me explain it to you this way. In the beginning, that which is all there was, and there was nothing else. Yet all that is could not know itself, because all that is all there was nothing else. And so all that is was not. For in the absence of something else, all that is not. This is the great is, not is too much mystics have referred from the beginning of time. Now all that is new, it was all there was, but it was not enough, for it could only know its utter magnificence, conceptually, not experientially. Yet the experience of itself is that for which it longed, for it wanted to know what it felt to be so magnificent. Still, this was impossible because the very term magnificence is a relative term, and as it could not know what it felt like to be magnificent unless that which is not show up. In the absence of that which is not, that which is not. Do you understand this? I think so. Keep going. Alright. The one thing that all that is new is that there was nothing else. And so it could and would never know itself from a reference point outside of itself. Such a point did not exist. Only one reference point existed, and that was the single place within. The is not is, the am not am. Still, the all of everything chose to know itself experientially. This energy, this pure, unseen, unheard, unobserved, and therefore unknown by anyone else energy, chose to experience itself as the utter magnificence it was. In order to do this, it realized it would have to use the reference points within. It reasoned quite correctly that any portion of itself would necessarily have to be less than the whole, and that if thus simply divided itself into portions, each portion, being less than the whole, could look back on the rest of itself and see magnificence. And so all that is divided itself, becoming, in one glorious moment, that which is this, and that which is that. For the first time, this and that existed quite apart from each other, and still both existed simultaneously, and did all that was neither. Thus, three elements suddenly existed, that which is here, that which is there, and that which is neither here nor there, but which must exist for here and there to exist. It is the nothing which holds the everything. It is the non-space which holds the space. It is the all which holds the parts. Can you understand this? Are you following this? I think I am, actually. Believe it or not, you have used such a clear illustration that I think I'm actually understanding this. I'm going to go further. Now, this nothing which holds the everything is what some people call God. Yet that is not accurate either, for it suggests that there is something God is not, namely, everything that is not, nothing. But I am all things, seen and unseen, so this description of me as the great unseen, the nothing, the space between, an essentially Eastern mystical definition of God, is no more accurate than the essentially Western practical description of God, as all that is seen. Those believe that God is all that is and that is not, are those whose understanding is correct. Now, in creating that which is here and that which is there, God made it possible for God to know itself. In the moment of this great explosion from within, God created relativity. The greatest gift God ever gave it to itself. Thus, relationship is the greatest gift God ever gave to you, a point to be discussed in detail later. From the nothing, thus, sprang the everything, spiritual event, entirely consistent, incidentally, with what your scientists call the Big Bang Theory. As the elements of one race forth, time was created, for a thing was first here, and then it was there, and the period it took to get from here to there was measurable. Just as the parts of itself which are seen began to define themselves relative to each other, so too did the parts which are unseen. God knew that for love to exist and to know itself as pure love, its exact opposite had to exist as well. So God voluntarily created the great polarity, the absolute opposite of love. Everything that love is not, what is now called fear. In the moment fear existed, love could exist as a thing that could be experienced. It is this creation of duality between love and its opposite, which humans refer in their various methodology as the birth of evil, the fall of Adam, the rebellion of Satan, and so forth. Just as you have chosen to personify pure love as the character you call God, so have you chosen to personify abject fear as the character you call the devil? Some on earth have established rather elaborate mythologies around these events. The complete with scenarios of battles and war, angelic soldiers and devilish warriors, the force of good and evil, of light and dark. The methodology has been mankind's early attempt to understand and tell others in a way they could understand, a cosmic occurrence of which the human soul is deeply aware, but of which the mind can barely conceive. In rendering the universe a divided version of itself, God produced from pure energy all that now exists, both seen and unseen. In other words, not only was the physical universe thus created, but the metaphysical universe as well. The part of God which forms the second half of the am-not-am equation also exploded into an infinite number of units smaller than the whole. These energy units you would call spirits. In some of your religious mythology, it is stated that God the Father had many spirit children. This parallel to the human experience of life multiplying itself seems to be the only way the masses could be made to hold in reality the idea of the sudden appearance, the sudden existence of countless spirits in the kingdom of heaven. In this instance, your mythical tales and stories are not so far from ultimate reality, for the endless spirits comprising the totality of me error, in a cosmic sense, my offspring. My divine purpose in dividing me was to create sufficient parts of me so that I could know myself experientially. There's only way for the Creator to know itself experientially as the Creator, and that is to create. And so I gave to each of the countless parts of me, to all of my spirit children, the same power to create which I have as the whole. This is what your religions mean when they say that you were created in the image and likeness of God. This doesn't mean, as some have suggested, that our physical body look alike. Although God can adopt whatever physical form God chooses to be particular purpose, it does mean that our essence is the same. We are composed of the same stuff. We are the same stuff, with all the same properties and abilities, including the ability to create physical reality out of thin air. My purpose in creating you, my spiritual offspring, was for me to know myself as God. I have no way to do that to save you through. Thus it can be said, and has been many times, that my purpose for you is that you should know yourself as me. This seems so amazingly simple, yet it becomes very complex, because there is only one way for you to know yourself as me, and that is for you first to know yourself as not me. Now try to follow this. Fight to keep up, because this gets very subtle here. Are you ready? I think so. Good. Remember, you've asked for this explanation. You waited for it for years. You've asked for it in layman's terms, not theological doctrines or scientific theories. Yes, I know what I have asked. And having asked, so shall you receive. Now, to keep things simple, I'm going to use your Children of God mythology model as a basic for discussion, because it is a model with which you are familiar, and in many ways, it is not that far off. So let's go back to how this process of self-knowing must work. There is one way I could have caused all of my spiritual children to know themselves as parts of me, and that was simply to tell them, this I did. But you see, it was not enough for spirit to simply know itself as God, as part of God, or children of God, or inheritors of the kingdom. As I've already explained, knowing something and experiencing it are two different things. Spirit longed to know itself experientially, just as I did. Conceptual awareness was not enough for you. So I devised a plan. It is the most extraordinary idea in all the universe and the most spectacular collaboration. I say collaboration because all of you are in it with me. Under the plan, you as pure spirit would enter the physical universe just created. This is because physicality is the only way to know experientially what you know conceptually. It is, in fact, the reason I created the physical cosmos to begin with, and the system of relativity which governs it and all creation. Once in the physical universe, you, my spirit children, could experience what you know of yourself. But first, you had to come to know the opposite. To explain that this simplicity, you cannot know yourself as told until you become aware of short. You cannot experience the part of yourself that you call fat unless you also know thin. Taken to ultimate logic, you cannot experience yourself as what you are until you've encountered what you are not. This is the purpose of theory of relativity and on physical life. It is by that which you are not that you are yourself are defined. Now, in the case of ultimate knowing, in the case of knowing yourself as the creator, you cannot experience yourself as creator unless and until you create. And you cannot create yourself until you uncreate yourself. In a sense, you have to first not be in order to be. Do you follow? I think stay with it. Of course, there's no way for you to not be who and what you are. You simply are that. Pure creative spirit have been always and always will be. So you did the next best thing. You caused yourself to forget who you really are. Upon entering the physical universe, you relinquish your remembrance of yourself. This allows you to choose to be who you are, rather than simply wake up in the castle, so to speak. It is the act of choosing to be, rather than simply being told that you are a part of God, that you experience yourself as being a total choice, which is what, by definition, God is. Yet how can you have a choice about something over which there is no choice? You cannot be my offspring no matter how hard you try, but you can't forget. You are, have always been, and will always be, a divine part of the divine whole, a member of the body. That is why the act of rejoining the whole, of returning to God, is called remembrance. You actually chose to remember who you really are, or to join together with the various parts of you to experience the all of you, which is to say, the all of me. Your job on earth, therefore, is not to learn because you already know, but to remember who you are and to remember who everyone else is. That is why a big part of your job is to remind others, that is to remind them, and so that they can remember also. All the wonderful spiritual teachers have been doing just that. It is your sole purpose. That is to say, your sole purpose